Night at 7 o'clock. NHL award show is coming up in a few weeks, then the draft and of course the development camp, also players being traded. It all happens this summer. Ron Futrell joins us now with a former NHL and Thunder player to discuss some off-season possibilities. Ron.
All right, thanks, Chris. Okay, we're talking some hockey here on this Sunday evening. I know it's hot outside, but we're still talking a lot of hockey in the offseason for the Knights after 2 years in the NHL. A lot of people talking about what's going to happen year 3. First of all, let's check out some of the important dates coming up here for the Golden Knights that you need to know about. The NHL awards ceremony here in town once again, about 10th, 11th year in a row that we've had it here. That's June 19th in Mandalay Bay. The NHL draft is coming up. Towards the middle of June, 21st, 22nd. That weekend, they'll have the draft in Vancouver, BC. Also, the Knights will have a developmental camp here where the kids will be out from the 25th to the 29th. That's at City National Arena. And then on July 1st, NHL free agency happens, which is the topic of our discussion here with Jeff Sharples, former NHL player, also played with the Thunder here in town. And you stayed here in Las Vegas and have been here since then with the Thunder in the mid-90s. So NHL draft. Let's start at the very top. I'm around town. People ask me, William Karlsson, what's going to happen with Wild Bill? The Knights are up against it with the salary cap. Right now, with the cap at about $80 million, they're over the cap, but it'll go to $83 million. Wild Bill makes a little over $5 million a year. He's a restricted free agent. What do the Knights do with Wild Bill? Do they keep him? What do they do?
Well, absolutely, they try and keep him. You know, the NHL rink is 200 feet long by 85 feet wide, and Wild Bill, as he's known in town, plays every foot of that. So the Knights will absolutely try and keep him. On the open market, if he was an unrestricted free agent, he's probably commanding $7-8 million. I think the Knights would somewhere between 5 and 6. Not a mathematician, but I think they get that, and they can probably move some money out somewhere else. But he's a fixture of the team. He's not too far off from the status of Fleury in England, and he's kind of almost a folk hero in town. And the Knights are about culture. And that's a big part of it, and Wild Bill's that. And
he's a fun player to watch out there. He was second in scoring last year in points for the team, so it wasn't like he had there was no strike. He had a great year last year, not as good as year 1 when he had 43 goals, but had a number 2 in scoring that line. In fact, Marcia Shaw, Riley Smith, and Wild Bill were 1, 2, and 3 in total points for the season. So so they had some success. On the defensive side, you were a defenseman. Okay, what do they do? There's a lot of talk. Colin Miller at more than about $3.5 million, $3.1 million, somewhere in there. But he's got 2 more years left on his contract. Do they try to trade him to try to make some cap space to go after somebody else?
Well, Colin Miller is a sought-after player in the NHL. He's a big kid, 6'2", he can skate, and he's a right-handed defenseman. That means a lot to a lot of teams. That fills a void for a lot of teams. It fills a void here in Las Vegas, too. I think by his own admission, he maybe didn't have the year that he wanted. There is a school of thought out there that says, yeah, we go in Vegas after a top 4 defenseman. Where do you get those guys? Can Colin Miller pick up his game and slot in with the other 6 defensemen that we have? Nick Holden was kind of the odd man out at the end of the year. Is he able to get his game back and push for more ice time too? Colin Miller's an interesting person because he's a player that a lot of teams would definitely have interest in.
Okay, you've been watching the Calder Cup, I know, where the minor league Wolves have been playing, and we're taping this before their game on Saturday, so we're not going to talk about the results there with them. But great experience, a lot of young kids, Cody Glass, Nick Hague, Zach Whitecloud, that are chomping at the bit, waiting for a chance to come up here. Bringing up some of the young kids helps your salary cap issues. Anybody that you see there with the Chicago Wolves ready for the big time?
Well, Cody Glass has gone down and played very well. Nick Hague, Whitecloud, Bishkoff on defense have played very well. Keegan Kolesar is a name that you might not hear too much, but he's a big, rugged guy. It could play really well in the Knights system, given a chance to play. The benefit of having these young guys come up is they all make under $1 million. And in the NHL now, Ron, what you have is the haves, which are the big name players that make a lot of money, and you have to fill out your roster with guys between $650,000, $900,000, which is a lot of money to us, but in the NHL salary cap world, it's not. So Where do you put them? If you bring up young defensemen, Knights fans, you're going to have to be ready for some tough nights. Literally, it's a growing. It's tough to play NHL defense, especially as you come in early. A lot of pace in the Western Conference. Guys like McDavid, Goudreau, those kind of guys you're going to see on a nightly basis. So, yes, I believe there's room for some young guys to come into the lineup, and salary cap issues might dictate that they play.
What do the Knights do in the free agent market? Is there anybody they go after? Eric Carlson has been mentioned, but I don't see that a possibility. They don't have the money for an Eric Carlson, nor do they make this. I don't see them making the space, but he still is not signed with San Jose, and he's an unrestricted free agent right now.
Yeah, you know, the defense side of the free agency, there's guys out there, but obviously Carlson's the biggest name by a long shot. There's a guy up in Winnipeg named Tyler Myers, who I'm a big fan of. I think he'd fit really well here, but someone's going to be willing to overpay him, especially with the way, if you watch St. Louis this year in the playoffs, those big rangy defensemen. Tyler Myers, 6'7", 6'8", lots of a big wingspan on him. There's a few other guys. My guess is if the Knights, right now, my guess would be if the Knights go and go after a defenseman, it would be through the trade market. Although, you know, who wouldn't want Eric Carlson on their team? Eats up a lot of minutes. He's a superstar.
But you mentioned an interesting theory. The Knights could just do nothing and have that salary cap go up to $83 million, keep the team as it was. Oh, by the way, a very good team last year. That with San Jose, we're not going to talk about what that's been talked about quite often, what happened there. But could just leave it the way it is, let some of the young kids come up and fill spots. That could be an answer for them, certainly.
Absolutely. I mean, this is basically the same team that got within a couple games of winning the Stanley Cup last year. You look at them, and you know they're as strong as anyone. They got away. You know, they didn't have the greatest start, which maybe made them work a little harder to get to where they wanted in the end. We can talk about the San Jose game all we want. They were there. They had that game. They were playing super. Where it would have gone, we don't know. So there is a school of thought that says, yeah, they could come back with a lot of the same pieces and give it a whirl. And then you got to, you know, we're 30 years old next year. You start plugging your young guys in, giving these guys a chance. Once again, it isn't necessarily the best player. It's the player that's going to fit into the Knights culture. That's one of the defining features of this team is their identity. It starts with their culture, owner down, general manager. And you know, it's funny, Ron, the biggest signing might be Kelly McCrimmon of the offseason.
To GM.
Yeah, I mean, yes. So that's okay. where we could look back and say Kelly McCrimmon was the best find that we already had in the organization. We kept him.
Kept the band together.
Yes.
Is what they were able to do. All right, Jeff Sharples, thank you very much for joining us here. Chris, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ron. Still ahead on Game On Vegas, Ryan Reeves using his skills off the ice to market more than hockey. That's next, right here on Channel 8.
Monday morning on Good Day.
Vacation selfies, they're all